Picture your last meal. Maybe it was fast. Maybe it was something you grabbed from a package, reheated, or ordered on your phone. You probably didn't think much about it. But what you just ate, and how you thought about it, is the result of millions of years of decisions your ancestors made long before the word food even existed. And the truth of what they actually ate will completely change the way you see your own hunger. Here is the thing most people get wrong. When you imagine ancient humans eating, you probably see a man with a club and a dead mammoth. That image is almost entirely fiction. Researchers have known for decades that the picture is far more complicated, far more interesting, and far stranger than that. Your ancestors were not the apex predators the history books suggest. They were opportunists, scavengers, foragers. They ate things that would make a modern stomach turn. And understanding what they actually put in their mouths explains almost everything about the body you live in today. Start with the basics. Anthropologist Richard Wrangham at Harvard University spent years building the case that cooking is the single most important invention in human history. Not fire itself, but the decision to use fire to transform food. His research, published in his book Catching Fire, argues that cooking fundamentally rewired the human body. When your ancestors began applying heat to raw plant material and meat, something remarkable happened. The calories locked inside those foods became dramatically easier to extract. Cooked starch releases 3 times more energy than raw starch. Cooked meat delivers almost double the protein absorption. Your gut shrank. Your brain grew. The two events are directly connected. You are literally smarter because your ancestors stopped eating everything raw. But before cooking, what did they eat? The honest answer is almost everything. Early hominins, the creatures on the long branch of your family tree before Homo sapiens arrived, ate insects by the handful. Not as a delicacy, as a staple. Termites, grubs, beetle larvae. High in fat, high in protein, easy to find. Primatologist Jane Goodall documented chimpanzees, your closest living relatives, spending hours carefully fishing termites from mounds with stripped twigs. That behavior is ancient. Your ancestors did the same thing. The disgust you feel right now about eating a grub is not instinct, it is culture. Your body would process that grub just fine. They also ate tubers. Lots of them. Underground storage organs, what you might call wild yams or roots, were likely the caloric backbone of early human diets on the African savanna. Paleoanthropologist Richard Wrangham and others point to tubers as the food that made year-round survival possible on the open grasslands. They are available even in dry seasons when fruit disappears. They are calorie-dense, and they survive fire. Roasting a tuber makes it far easier to digest. Some researchers believe the digging stick, a sharpened piece of wood used to pry tubers from the earth, may be the oldest tool in human history. Older than spears, older than blades. Before your ancestors hunted anything, they dug. Fruit, when available, was eaten immediately and eagerly. Seeds, leaves. The marrow inside bones cracked open with rocks. Fat was precious. Your brain is 60% fat. Your cell membranes are made of it. Fat was not a health problem for your ancestors. It was survival itself. When a scavenged carcass still had marrow inside the femur bones, that was a jackpot. Researchers studying cut marks on ancient bones at sites in East Africa have found evidence that hominins were cracking open bones for marrow long before they were hunting large game. They were not hunters first. They were marrow eaters. Meat came, but not the way most people imagine. Big game hunting, the kind depicted in every cave painting and every documentary, was rare for most of human prehistory. Researcher Leslie Aiello's work suggests that for a significant portion of our evolutionary history, the meat in the diet came mostly from small animals: birds, lizards, tortoises, rabbits, animals that did not require complex cooperative hunting strategies. When large animals did make it onto the menu, it was often because something else had already done the killing. Vultures, lions, leopards. Your ancestors watched these predators from a distance, waited, and then moved in fast with sharp stones to cut away what remained before the predators came back. That is not the story you were told, but it is the one the bones tell. And here is where it gets even stranger. The diets of early humans were not consistent. They were wildly variable. What you ate depended entirely on where you lived and what season it was. Coastal populations ate shellfish, sea urchins, fish, and kelp. Inland populations ate whatever the land offered. Groups living near rivers ate freshwater turtles and catfish. Groups living at high altitude ate things that lower populations never encountered. Researcher Alison Brooks and her colleagues have documented this geographic diversity in the archaeological record across Africa, showing that human ancestors were dietary generalists in the deepest possible sense. There was no single ancestral human diet. There were hundreds of them. This is what makes the modern obsession with finding the one true diet humans were meant to eat so deeply, fundamentally confused. Your ancestors were not built for one food. They were built for flexibility. The human gut is a generalist organ. Your teeth are a compromise. Not pure carnivore teeth, not pure herbivore teeth, but something in between that could handle both. Your digestive enzymes reflect a long evolutionary history of eating everything available. The amylase in your saliva, the enzyme that begins breaking down starch the moment food enters your mouth, is present in far higher quantities in humans than in other great apes. That single fact tells you that starchy plant foods were so important to your ancestors for so long that your genome made extra copies of the gene that produces it. Now think about what that means for you today. When you crave sugar, you are running ancient software. Your brain evolved to treat sweet foods as a priority because sweet meant ripe fruit, which meant vitamins and fast energy. When you cannot stop eating once you start, that is not weakness. That is a system designed for scarcity. Your ancestors never knew when the next meal was coming. Stopping while food was still available was not an option the body entertained. The urge to keep going, to finish the plate, to have one more. That is millions of years of evolutionary logic operating in a world those circuits were never designed for. When you see a piece of fatty food and feel drawn to it, you are feeling the same pull your ancestor felt standing over a cracked bone on the savannah, surrounded by the smell of blood and dust. Fat was the difference between surviving the dry season and not surviving it. Your body still does not know the dry season ended. It is still preparing. It is still storing. It is still saying, eat now, because later might not come. And the plants. The bitter leaves your ancestors chewed without thinking twice about. The roots that modern people would not recognize as food. The insects that provided more iron per gram than beef. The shellfish that built the concentrated omega-3 reservoir your brain still depends on. None of it looks like what fills your refrigerator, but all of it built the body you are walking around in. Wrangham's cooking hypothesis did not just explain a dietary shift, it explained a cognitive one. The energy freed up by cooking did not just maintain the body, it fed the brain. A larger brain meant more complex social networks. More complex social networks meant more learning, more cooperation, more language. The act of cooking together, sitting around a fire, sharing food, waiting, may have been the original social contract. Mealtime became something more than refueling. It became a ritual. It became culture. It became the foundation of almost everything that followed. So the next time you sit down to eat and you look at whatever is in front of you, understand what you are really doing. You are the end result of a 4 million-year experiment in staying alive. Every craving is a message from that experiment. Every preference is a signal from a body that learned what it needed long before you were born. What ancient humans actually ate is not ancient history. It is the operating code running beneath everything you taste, everything you want, and everything you feel when you are finally, deeply satisfied. Your last meal? That was the experiment, still running.